What's Cooking Revere? Hi, my name is Kelly Armetta. I'm the executive chef of the Hyatt Regency Boston, a Revere native for the last 27 years, and I'm excited to be here today. And I'd like to say Happy Mother's Day. Today we're going to make a brunch for Mother's Day, and all you folks out there that are enjoying a brunch typically outside, well, you're going to do something different. You're going to make it for that special woman in your life tonight, your wife, your mother, your daughter. Great, let's get started. A little bit about me before we really get rolling stuff. I've been working in the industry for, 37 years now. Started in the front of the house as a busboy and a server, and then got into the cooking world. Kind of a passion for me that I've been doing for a very long time. So it's become a way of life. I'm currently now the executive chef of the Hyatt Regency Boston, Director of Culinary Services, and also the corporate chef for Australis Barramundi, the Better Fish. We represent a lot of great products that we work with, particularly with Barramundi and all these little convenient products. So with that said, I'd like to get started on something really nice. We're going to have a great menu for you today. It's going to be really smooth and really nice and enjoyable. So what do you think about Sunday brunch, right? You think of, eggs, you think of a meat entree, you think of a little bit of fruit, you think of a little bit of jams, and of course pancakes. What's brunch without pancakes? So I got a really nice menu. We're going to start off with a biscuit, very simple biscuit. So the thing about this particular biscuit recipe is that it becomes really, really simple to use as a base, and then you can kind of break it up into other things. Okay, so to get started, we're going to make sure we have some butter and some cream cheese that are in the freezer for a little bit of time. So when you cut them, put them in there, because it has to be really nice and cold for us to work with to make this dough. So we pull them out of the freezer. We have some cake flour, some all-purpose flour, a little bit of salt, some sugar, some baking soda, and some baking powder. So you say, what's the difference between the flours? What's the difference between baking soda and baking powder? What's the difference between the butter and the cream cheese? They all lend themselves differently to what you're making. So all-purpose flour is what it means, right? It's kind of general. It has a certain amount of gluten to it. Cake flour is very light. You don't want your cake to taste like a piece of bread with cream cheese on it or like a whipped cream, so you want it nice and light. So cake flour has a lower protein content, so the gluten is different. And then there's bread flour, which is one that has more structure. So in this recipe, you want the combination of the two. Then you have butter and cream cheese. Well, butter is nice and fatty, and cream cheese is even fattier. So what's nice about this particular recipe is that the butter, when it starts to heat up and cook, it separates with the steam in it and gives you nice layers. So we're also going to put some buttermilk inside here, right? And this buttermilk is what's going to trap inside the flour. So then, of course, you have a little seasoning of salt and some sugar. And then the baking powder and the baking soda, they lend themselves differently to what we're doing here today. So baking powder, think of a P for pow, gives you structure on the way up. Baking soda gives you structure for the sides, right? So it gives you more texture and it holds up to cooking and that fat content that weighs it down. So that's the kind of the technical reasons why you do certain things. But let's get out of that and let's actually start cooking some biscuits and get it going here. It's a really simple recipe, okay? We're gonna do our flours inside here, right? Our cake flour and our all-purpose flour, a little bit of salt, which gives you good flavoring, right? Some sugar, and then there's our leavening agents, our structures, our baking powder, our baking soda, right? So we got these guys here now. All right. Next, we got our 2 fat contents and our buttermilk at the end afterwards. So first thing we're going to do is I like to mix this up a little bit first so all the dry ingredients get together and kind of incorporate a little bit more evenly. So we're just going to pulse this a little bit. All right? Perfect. We don't have to do much more than that. Now we're going to put our butter and our cream cheese. Now it's important to keep it cold, which is why I had it in the freezer for a little bit. If we keep it in the freezer for a little bit, it traps the fat and becomes crumbles a little bit better. when you're starting to, it traps the flour, I should say, and when you start to cook it, it traps the moisture, so you get those layers. That's why it has to be cold. Otherwise, it breaks down and gets oily. So we are going to pulse this guy a little bit. You want a little bit of crumbs, almost like sand, almost like Revere Beach, right? So let's see how this is real quick. It's still a little bit lumpy. I want a little bit more finer. Okay. Yeah, it's better now. It's just the granulars are a little bit smaller now. I can feel the fat breaking down, and it's starting to get incorporated with the flour. All right, so we got these guys here. Let me just kind of take this out of the way, and we'll start with the next process. Okay. All right, so you can see this a little bit, what we're doing. I kind of nice clear bowl. I wanted to make sure you had it. All right, so we put our flour and our fat mixture inside here. Got this guy out of the way now. All right, and now we're going to put our buttermilk. So this particular, it's just a very simple buttermilk. It's a cup with a tablespoon of additional amount of buttermilk. Now we're going to gently start to mix this here. Now, what's important about this particular method is that I don't want to overwork this flour so that it develops too much gluten. Remember, I want to keep this nice and light and airy and flaky, right? So this base here is really important to kind of just work it really gently, okay? So you don't want to overwork it. You don't want to work it with a mixer. You notice I didn't put it back in the mixer or some type of Cuisinart. I just kind of put it right in here. So you don't really need to work it too hard. You just want to make sure you get most of this flour being incorporated into a dough. Then we'll put it on the counter and kind of work it just a little bit. Now, I mentioned to you this is a base, right? So as a base, what does that mean? It means I can do different things with it. So we're going to do 3 types of flavors. All right, so that's pretty much almost all incorporated. I'm going to take this out of here. Okay, get my hands in here. Now, here's the best part. This is your best tools. Your hands are your best tools. So get in there, work it a little bit. Get the kids involved. This is fun. This is Mother's Day, right? So you got to get the kids involved, you dads, because mom's going to sit home and you're going to make this for them, right? So you got to get them in there because it's nice and sticky. It's fun. But I don't want to work it too much, all right? So we're going to put this on the counter here. And I got these little crumbs here that still got to be incorporated. So we'll keep this out of the way. All right, so we're going to work this till it all comes together, okay? And then it's not as sticky, okay? Now, we're going to divide it into 3 because I'm going to do 3 flavors. I'm going to do cheddar cheese, scallion, and some black pepper, okay? So you can certainly do just one flavor, or you can do them plain. These are really great plain, and we're going to make some jam in a minute too, right after we get this in the oven, because it's going to take a few minutes to cook, but while we're cooking it, we're going to maximize our time, right? All right, see how this came together? I don't have to work it too much, okay? So let's divide it into 3, relatively even, right? Got our knife right there. All right, now, I don't want to work this too much. Making a nice, see, it's nice and light, right? It holds up really good. So those are good. I don't have to make them perfect, like the rustic look. Don't make them too flat, that's 1. If it sticks a little bit, we got a little bit of extra flour right here on the side. You don't want to put too much flour because then you're working too much, okay? Really simple. That's 2 down, right? A little bit more here. This one's probably a little bit bigger, but it's okay. So as it stands right now, this is ready to go as it is, right? So pretty simple as it is. So I got a little bit of cracked black pepper. So I want to take this one here, put some cracked black pepper. You don't have to do pepper. You can leave it plain. Don't worry. It's okay. If you don't like pepper, it's okay. And notice I put a little bit inside. And I got a little bit on top here. All right? So there's one. Next. So far, so good, right? Easy. Real easy. So a little bit of cheddar cheese. So you get the shredded cheddar. It's really good, particularly if you're going to put it inside something. You don't have to work hard. You don't have to worry about, you know, doing the extras and having leftover pieces. All right, so I roll it a little bit. Try not to work it too much because I want my biscuits to be nice and fluffy. Okay. Got my cheddar cheese right here. That's 2. So I got a little cheese down there. All right, next, some scallions. You can use chives if you like. You could change it to rosemary, or anything like that if you want. If you do rosemary, you might want to cook it up a little bit because you don't want that sappy flavor, right? Like the way like a pine needle would be. So we have this here. Almost looks like a scallion pancake, right? So you got these right here. And then right, so you got your 3 biscuits right there, your 3 different flavors. So now we're going to cut these into 4. They could be rustic. They don't have to be perfect. That's the beauty of it. All right, just cut them into 4. Easy, easy. That was so far. This one we're going to do into 6 because it's a little bit bigger. All right. Push this guy down. There we go. All right, let me get my pan here. Okay, so move these guys out of the way. They're not going to rise too much, so but you definitely want to push them, keep them where they don't touch, right? Otherwise, they're going to stick together. Non-stick pan. I don't have it sprayed. There's enough fat as it is in it, right? Okay, these are big here. We'll kind of tighten them up just a little bit. Okay, and I think we need to probably put a little bit more of some topping to it. This one's here. They're relatively all the same size and thickness, so they should cook nice and even. Okay, so there we got some black pepper here. Nothing on top. You don't need any butter, no oil, nothing like that. Put a little more cheese here because I like cheese. My daughter likes cheese. My wife likes cheese. We all like cheese. So a little extra doesn't hurt. All right. So now our biscuits are ready to go in the oven. Okay. So 450 degrees for approximately 10 to 12 minutes. I don't know how your oven is, if you have a fan or not, but you want to make sure that you're at 450 degrees for about approximately 10 to 12 minutes, and you'll have to check that, okay? So we put these in the oven. We're going to let that guy go. And then in the meantime, while we're letting that cook, we're going to make two quick jams. One jam, one compote, really. What's a compote? Compote usually is like a multiple flavors, cooked a little different, a little chunkier, right? So we're going to do that. So I got a nice simple blueberry one. And we just move these out of the way. And then we'll be able to get started on that. Okay, so what do we have here today? We have a couple of different nice items to work with, and I want to talk about sugars and sweetness. Okay, I'm going to move this up a little bit so you can see it better. All right. So what's in season right now? Strawberry, rhubarb, right? It's the spring. You think of strawberry and rhubarb. I'm going to make this into a compote. Got it chopped here. I'll chop a little bit more. You don't want to eat the leaves. They kind of make you nauseous. You don't want to eat those. Got nice blueberries right here. And I got some freeze-dried blueberries, which is going to give you a nice little crunch at the end. So we'll put that on later. A little bit of cinnamon. Now I got two types of sweetener here. I got honey and I got agave. Of course, you can use sugar. No problem. And I want to talk about the sweetness, what they mean exactly. Let me get this guy out of here too, because it's going to be in our way. All right, so sweetness. Your body processes sugar all the same. Doesn't matter what the sugar is. It still makes insulin, so you're still going to have to worry about if that's going to be something that you have to be concerned about, right? So we have these nice, beautiful strawberries. So what we're going to do is we're going to take strawberries, rhubarb, agave. We'll take blueberry, honey, cinnamon. That's going to be that, and a little bit of the freeze-dried. Take this down over here. So instead of using sugar, which gives you a good flavor, let's face it, instead of using sugar, I want to use something that has a little more character to it. And also, from a health standpoint, a little more nutrients, right? You know, when you work with honey or you work with agave, it's just better for you, right? So it's gonna work so much better in that reflect. All right, so very simply, we have agave. We're gonna heat this pan up over here. I'm just gonna get this stuff ready while we're waiting. Give me 1 second. All right, we got some of this, and put some strawberries. Now, here's the thing. You take these nice, beautiful strawberries, right? And you chop them up. So why don't you use the stuff that's not so nice, that's getting a little on the old side, make a jam out of it, right? And then you have these nice, beautiful strawberries, or the beat up strawberries, and then you have these nice little tops here. So take these tops, and I'm not going to do it today, but a little trick I do is I save these tops. I put them in red vinegar or white vinegar. Just red or white. White actually works a little better. And I soak them in there for about a week. So you take these tops, let them sit there for a week, and voila, you got strawberry vinegar. Now you take that and put some honey in it, put some oil in it, and you got a beautiful strawberry dressing. Very simply. Great way to use up these scraps that you normally would throw away, right? So we got some strawberries here. Put these guys aside. We don't need any more of that. We got some strawberries. We're going to leave these guys on the whole side, kind of big, because we want a compote. Okay, so we're going to put our rhubarb, grab this guy over here, our rhubarb, our strawberries, okay, and our agave. How much? As much as you like. All right, so don't worry about having too much. Now, we're going to put a little bit of water so they can start to cook down. So here's the thing about this one. You cook it down. You don't worry about how long it's going to cook, or if it's cooked all the way, if it's undercooked, because all this stuff is edible raw, not a big deal. You can eat it like that. So don't worry about when is it done. You make it as thick as you want. You can add other components to it. Now, the agave will give a nice natural syrup to it that will thicken it up. So that's what that's for. All right, so that's simple, right? We got that out of the way. This is going to be a topping for our biscuits, and you can also use it for the pancakes. So feel like you can do it for both. Now, we have another pan for the blueberries. This is actually no work involved, even easier, right? Look at this. Blueberries, honey. Now, there's different types of honey out there, right? A raw, unfiltered honey. You could do a orange blossom honey, which is probably one of the most popular one that you've probably seen or had, right? All kinds of different types of honey. So use what you like. They all have their little things. Cinnamon. Cinnamon and blueberries work really well together. They're like a match made in heaven. So when you take cinnamon and blueberries, particularly like in muffins, they work really well together. So again, a little bit of water. This kind of helps it along, right? And eventually that water is going to kind of evaporate. All right, so we have our fruits going here. Okay. Now these fruits are going. They're going to cook up a little bit. So if you wanted to make this into a jam and kind of store it, you can get some pectin, put it inside there, and then put it inside a sterilized jar. And then, of course, you can, a ball jar or something like that, and kind of conceal it and put them away, and they work great. But if we're doing a quick one, something we're going to serve right away, something you're going to eat within the next week or so, you don't need to do all that. Those steps are not necessary. So we're going to do that right here. We're going to cook it down, and we're going to have these jams ready for our biscuits. So in the meantime, we're going to take a break, and we'll see you back in about 5 minutes. Thanks. Welcome back. We are just done right now. The biscuits are almost ready, coming out nice and hot. Our jam and our compote are ready to go. If you notice, the blueberry jam is nice and thick. Look at that, it's still cooking, even though it's off. See the consistency? Look at that, beautiful. So I got these nice little jars here, right? Little fun little jars. I'm gonna fill them up, nice and warm. So there's our blueberry with cinnamon and some honey. Next, we have our strawberry rhubarb, right? Look at that, perfect. More of a compote, it's chunkier, has more texture to it, right? This one, make them with agave, right? This is gonna be a little thicker, all right? That's good. So we have our sauces right there. Actually, let's put these little freeze-dried guys right on top. All right, awesome. Great, out of the way here. Put these guys in the sink. And our biscuits are ready. Oh, look at that, that looks great. Nice and hot. Woo, beautiful. We got some really nice flavors here. Right, we have our pepper down here, nice and hot. Notice they didn't stick. There's enough fat in them, you don't really have to worry about putting anything on it. We have our cheddar cheese, right? How do you know they're ready? Nice and firm still, but they give in just a little bit, they're not dry. And now we have our scallions. It's still hot, but I can pick it up. And I like when they get a little bit of caramelized like that, right? It gives you a little bit of richness to it. All right, so this is nice and hot. We're going to move them out of the way. Be careful. And there's our first round. Our biscuits, our 2 jams, compote and jam. We'll come back to that in a little bit. So we have a nice pork loin here that we're going to season it with a little Tunisian style spices, right? And I'll talk about that in a minute, what that exactly means. So you get a pork tenderloin. And with this pork tenderloin, most of them tend to be pretty lean as they are, but there's a little bit of light cleaning right here. I'll move this out of the way so you can see it better. So we're gonna lightly clean it up a little bit, not too much, a little bit of light silver skin. You don't need to worry about it. It actually kind of melts away. Remember, you can eat the fat on the pork, so it's not that big of a deal. For those of you that maybe don't like pork or can't eat pork for whatever reason, I know that sometimes there's a few allergies with that. You could certainly substitute a nice lamb loin, right? You can substitute some chicken with this. This cooks nice and simple. It's really tender, doesn't take long to cook at all. You can leave it a little underdone, serve it to like a more of a medium. And here's the beauty about this, what I liked about this one a lot, is you don't have to cook it and serve it hot. You could serve it at room temperature or even cold, right? So that works really well. So we got a couple of spices here that I want to talk about, are kind of different than what you typically would have. So we have some coriander, some garlic powder, some fennel, some caraway seed, and some red chili flakes, okay? Now, I ground this up in a coffee grinder, so they become nice and fine. You can use them whole, they're a lot more assertive that way, but I like them with a ground. So we're gonna put the fennel, the caraway, the red pepper flakes, which you wanna be careful with if you don't like it too spicy, some garlic powder. What's life without garlic, right? And some coriander. Not too much on the coriander. We don't want to overpower this. And then we're going to put some some salt to this, right? Right inside here. So you put some on top of it like this, and then you're going to put some salt also on the pork. Okay, so like I said, you can go ahead and use a chicken breast if you like, grill it if you want to. You can also put nice lamb loin. Actually, this recipe was inspired when I put this on a lamb loin for a big event I did at the hotel one year. And it worked out so good when I came up with this recipe. Kind of did a little research about the flavor blend, and I loved it so much. So I use it often, and it works really well. All right, so I don't want to overdo this in terms of spicing it, okay? But I do want to put a little bit of oil on this, olive oil, of course. What's nice about this dish, we're going to make it, cook it, cool it, slice it, and we're going to put a nice olive relish, a really great Mediterranean dish here, without necessarily being a typical, when they say Mediterranean, Italian style, but a little bit more influences of Morocco, northern part of Africa, and a little bit of Libya and that. So it's a great spice blend. All right, so we're going to put this on here nice and heavy, okay? Nice and heavy. Roll it around. Now, for you guys, you want to barbecue it. I know guys like to barbecue. You're cooking for your wife. We're going to grill that day. Grill, perfect. Cook this early enough, right? This smells wonderful already. I wish you can smell it. This flavor's nice and warm, right? So you're rubbing it all on this guy. I'm not even going to do much then on a hot oven, a little bit on a 400, 425 degrees, so that way it kind of sears on its own. Now, think about when you cook something that's whole like this, right? You want to flavor the outside a little bit more than you normally would like a steak, because your flavor profile is going to, when you cut into it, you'll eat the exterior, but the solid muscle on the inside is bland. So you want a little extra seasoning on the outside. Okay, when you cook an individual steak, you take an individual bite and you got seasoning on the outside, it really does kind of cover your mouth and cover the meat. But when you have a bigger roast or something, this is not overly big, but if you have a bigger roast, you want to be a little heavier on it. So when you cut into it, you try and get in there. All right, we got this in this pan here, a nice rack. I'm going to put this in the oven, okay? You're going to need about 25, 30 minutes or so, give or take. Again, we can undercook it a little bit to medium rare, medium even, okay? And we'll let this guy go. So in the meantime, I'm going to clean this guy up, and I'll be right back. So while we have our pork in the oven, one of the things I want to do right now is I wanted to make a little bit of this olive relish on top that's going to go there, and a little bit of a bean puree. What's nice about this, you get that nice spiciness from the pork, the Tunisian type spices that we talked about. And then you have that nice little assertive with the olives here. I got a couple of different blends of olives here. But then we're going to do these beans here. We're going to make a nice smoothness, little creaminess that's going to tone down that little spice. So in your RoboCoupe, okay, or your Cuisinart, if you will, right, you're going to put some beans here. You can use cannellini beans. You can use a little bit of white pinto beans, is what I have here. You can use chickpeas if you like. I like the white because it goes with the whole look to it. Don't have to overdo it. I put a little bit of scallion in here just to kind of give it a little onion flavor, but we're going to put scallion in the relish anyway, so we don't have to do too much. And then very simply, now, when you use canned beans in particular, it's important to note that there's salt in it already, so you don't need to put much more salt in it. So we're going to put this nice little oil in it, make this little creaminess to it, nice and smooth. Let's see what this guy looks like in here. I think this looks pretty good. I don't mind it being chunky. It's kind of fun the way it is, right? A little texture to it, nice and smooth. Maybe a little bit here. It's a little too chunky there. We'll just put a little bit more. Notice I didn't do much to it, right? Just the canned beans to it, and you can put a little vinegar if you want in it. White balsamic vinegar, a little bit of white vinegar, a little bit of red vinegar. But again, we don't need to do too much of that. All right, so we have our little bean puree. Perfect. So the texture looks good. A little simple on the flavor. Don't have to overdo it because we're going to put the other bean stuff on top. All right. I mean the olives on top, which will have a lot more flavor too. So we'll just put this over here. This It's a nice spread, nice dip if you wanted to use it with. And if you're going to do things like a dip, I would put some garlic in it. I would put some vinegar or some lemon in there. You don't need to do too much other things to it, but pretty much that's it. Okay, so we're going to put this guy aside. We don't need this anymore. We're done with this for today. And now we're just going to work on a little bit of our relish here. So we're going to take a couple of the Castrovillo olives here, some Kalamata olives, all pitted, of course. Okay, well, this one's not pitted, so we'll just go around the sides here. You can buy them. You can make, so you make it almost like a kind of a chunky version of a tapenade, sort of, kind of a loose version of it. Okay. I want it nice and chunky. I don't have to make it perfect. If you don't want to work with the knife, you can go ahead and put them right in the Cuisinart, like I just did with the beans. You can just kind of pulse it and chop it that way. There's another way of doing it. Okay. When you have a pit and you don't want to really start to pit them all, you just kind of go like that. Of course, you can just pit it just by breaking it with your fingers. And that's pretty much all we really need. We don't need too much here. All right, so we'll just take this guy, chop him up. Now I got some capers here. So Sicilian capers that I soaked in, they were packed in salt. And I soaked them in some water, kind of washed them up, kind of take that salt out, right? Put this over here. I got some little bit of a leftover scallions that I had from the biscuits, so might as well use them here, right? I got a little bit of fresh chopped parsley that we're gonna put on top. Okay, Italian parsley, of course. It has more flavor than the curly parsley. Kind of holds up a little bit better. Okay. Now, we got some beautiful little red tomatoes here and some beautiful little yellow tomatoes here. So this is so nice because they just kind of have a nice little look to them, right? And so let's talk about when you cut things that are round, right? And you want to be safe. Make them flat. Onion, a tomato, make them flat. That way you don't hurt yourself. It doesn't run on you, right? And just see, they're a little flat. They don't have to roll on you. And that's pretty much it, right? Simple. Nice, beautiful, bright color. Kind of reminds you of the spring, summertime, Mother's Day, right? All this stuff that's going here. Okay. And now we're going to let this guy sit a little bit. We got some salt in here. I noticed capers in here, and they're salty, and as well as the olives are a little bit salty, but you need a little bit more. You always need a little bit more. And then I know we have the spices that on there that is pepper, right? So I'm just going to put a little bit more here because they kind of lend themselves differently. They don't flow. They don't like hit your tongue the same way, and they pull out the moisture, particularly with the salt here. So you got this nice little olive, caper, tomato, relish. By the way, you can put this on fish. You can put this on chicken. You can just put it on a sandwich with nice slices of prosciutto and salami. It's just great just the way it is. So we have our bean. We have our tomato here with our olives, right? Okay, we got these nice tomatoes. We're gonna move these out of the way. And that's it. Okay, so I'm gonna go check on the pork real quick. Hold there 1 second. Pork is doing well. And then one thing I want to talk about is acid. Acid is really important, and I didn't put acid in here yet because it's going to sit for a little bit. We got a few minutes, but you have different types of acid. There's lemon, right? A citrus acid, a vinegar acid, acid from a tomato. In the case here, there's tomatoes, but that's not enough acid, right? So we're going to help us along by doing some nice stuff. This is a really nice sherry vinegar. I like sherry vinegar because it gives a warm flavor. So I actually, believe it or not, I take a little sherry vinegar and I put it in my turkey gravy. All you need is like 2 tablespoons to like a quart of gravy, and it heightens it and makes it really nice. So sherry vinegar goes a long way. So a little bit of vinegar here, and what this does is it really starts to balance out everything. It starts to pull everything, and it just kind of homogenizes the flavors. All right, so we have these guys sitting here. We're gonna let them go. We're gonna let them sit for a little bit while we wait for our turkey. Excuse me, I started turkey, excuse me, our pork. But yeah, you could use this with turkey, absolutely, sure, why not? All right, so that's what we have right here. Great, so we'll see you in a little bit when the pork's ready. So I got something really interesting to show you today. I have a frittata, which we all know what a frittata is, right? Basically a big egg omelet, big fat Italian omelet. But I got something unique we're gonna do. It's kind of trending today, which is cacio e pepe, which is this Roman pasta dish with cheese and pepper. 2 ingredients, right? It's pasta, pepper, and cheese. Those 3, that's all it is. That's all the dish is, really. About 2017, I was in Italy studying with some chefs and going around and kind of looking at some real regional type cooking. And so cacio e pepe was one of those really Roman dish, and it was just 3 ingredients. So I got a little variation of that. I'm kind of playing around with these things. So we're going to work with a frittata because it's a great brunch item, right? So I'm just going to take this guy, put him out of our way, and we're going to get started. So I got some pre-cooked pasta, whatever you want. I got some shells here that I cooked off. Okay, you can use orecchiette, you can use penne. I like the kind of smaller ones, right? We got some eggs over here. I got my pan getting nice and hot. I'm just going to lower it just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to have an onion right here that we're going to chop up real quick, and we're going to make a frittata. So let me get this guy out of the way, and I'll talk about the pepper in 1 second. All right, so we got this onion here. We're going to peel it and just saute it up a little bit. Okay, so you know, like I said, the ingredients typically are just the pasta with the cheese and the pepper. Okay, in this case, I got a little bit of onion, right? I got the pan warm. There's no oil in the pan right now. That's because I want to give it a little bit more texture. So I got these onions in here. Lowered it up just a little bit. I don't want it to caramelize yet. Okay, and then I'm going to start putting my eggs in here. So how many eggs? Well, how big is your pan? That's the thing, right? So we got a little shell here. Excuse me. So how do you break an egg? You crack it, right, fast enough, and then you split it. Okay? So the thing about the eggs, if you get a shell, the big pieces come out. The small pieces actually settle to the bottom. So after you whip it, they go down to the bottom if you wait. So I got a bunch of eggs here. Really depends on how big your pan is. Okay? We're going to whisk it up. So we're going to take 2 types of cheese here. Typically it's pecorino romano, which is a Roman cheese typically made with goat's milk, sheep's milk I should say, right? So it's typically made with that. But I'm going to do a combination of Parmesan and pecorino. So we're going to put a little bit of pecorino and a little bit of Parmesan, right? Mix this guy up a little bit. We'll put some salt in it. And I know this cheese is salty, but you still need more salt because it kind of plays differently. So we put our salt in here, right? We're going to take a little bit of this parsley. Nice chunk, big pieces. You don't need to chop it fine. Put it right in here, right? Really goes good. So I got this pepper here. Nice and crunchy, big pieces, right? Which is the main ingredient in this dish. So I want a lot. Notice I have a lot there? That's okay. Now, you can put more if you want, but you want that nice peppery flavor to it, which is the main ingredient here. Now, we'll put this aside for 1 second. Get this knife out of the way. We don't need them. So I got a little extra pepper here that I want to show you a little trick on something, okay? So I got this nice, instead of doing with the pepper mill, which is going to take too much time, I just want to kind of crush it with the back of a pan. I want these nice crunchy pieces so they kind of sit in my mouth and have a nice little peppery burnness to it. I'm mixing it with the cheese because we're going to mix it with the pasta. What typically is what you would do, right? In a restaurant, you would get the cheese, the pasta, while it's nice and hot, a little bit of the pasta water, right? Mix all these guys together. Normally you wouldn't put cream in it, but I put a little cream to kind of put this together so it kind of incorporates a little bit better. So you don't need too much of that, okay? So I'll just mix this guy around. So the onions are working, you can hear that, right? But I don't have it sizzling because I don't have any oil in the pan. But once I have the oil in the pan, it's going to go quickly. All right, so now this is nice and kind of incorporated. It's covered all around. This is good just the way it is, right? Perfect. So we have this right here, right? We put our pepper. We got our eggs. Now, ready to go. We're going to put the oil. Okay. So the thing about frittatas, right? The pan, this is a nice cast iron pan. It's coated, it's a loge. If you have a Le Creuset, or if you just got a regular cast iron that's not covered, like the old classic ones, which I think in this case works sometimes even better because it creates a better crust when it's nice and hot. Kind of gives you that nice richness on the bottom of the pan. Okay, so we're going to let this guy kind of saute up a little bit, and then we're going to put the eggs. We're going to fold in the pasta. Get it nice and kind of let it start to cook on the bottom. And then we're going to bake it in the oven. Put that in the oven. We're going to let it cook up and without a cover, get a nice little crust to it. We'll put a little couple of tomatoes on top. It looks beautiful. We're going to serve it right in this dish, which is the other thing, right? It's going to be served right in here. It's going to look great. It's going to have a nice feel to the whole experience of the table. All right, so we have our onions. You can caramelize them if you want. I'm not going to caramelize them too much here. I'm just going to get them a little bit brown, okay? It's a big piece here. Smell that going great here. All right, so while that's going, we have our cheese, pasta, I have eggs, we have our olive oil. Right, we have all this ready to go. We got this extra cheese. Let's just put them in there. Ain't gonna hurt the dish for sure, right? Mix everything up. Okay, let that get nice and hot. So it's important to note is that you want this pan. What's nice about these pans is that they're thick, so they get a nice even heat. So a cast iron pan, any brand, usually that's nice and thick. It's gonna have a nice even heat. So with these, and then of course a nice pretty pan is beautiful to serve in. Now, they take a little bit more, but they give you a better crust. So it depends on what your ultimate goal is to be. I want the bottom of the egg to get a little crusty if I can, right? That's the goal for here. What's nice if you do the cast iron, those get even heavier and they get a deeper crust and they make it a little more brown because some of that iron actually, believe it or not, transfers into the eggs. So we're letting that see it's starting to get a little translucent. You can see through it a little bit. It's gotten a little bit of a little caramelization. I'm not going to fault that. It's always a good thing. Doesn't hurt. Get this guy here. Now, it has to be hot enough so when the egg goes in here, it starts to make almost an immediate crust. So this is why I want to get this nice and hot. Okay? What I love about this dish here is that it's a simple one-pot cooking. Anytime you can do a one-pot where you serve it in or you use the same pot in multiple ways, it's going to make it easier when you clean up. And that's the key to cooking at home, especially for you dads, because you got to clean up after this mess. You don't want your wife to come down for Mother's Day and be like, oh my God, what happened? You don't want that. So you want to make sure you kind of have an easy cleanup. All right, he's getting a little brown over there. It's good to go. I think you hear that sound? Sounds great. All right, so we got our eggs. We're going to put this in here. Okay. We're going to incorporate this guy a little bit. Okay, we get out nice and hot. So we want to get this temperature kind of up quickly. Once it starts to come up, now we're going to put some of the pasta. We may not use all this pasta. And if you have a use for some extra pasta, which I'm sure most folks do, okay? If you have a use for extra pasta, see it's already starting to make a crust, okay? What we're doing. You put this in here, and you bake this together. So you got a little cream in it. I know, like I said, normally it wouldn't normally be in that in the recipe, a classic recipe. All right. So we want to let this guy come up. I think it's enough to get coated all around. Get him in there. Get him nice and push him down here. Okay. Get this nice and cranking high, and then we'll see how this guy goes. All right. So we talked about the pan and making life easy with cleanup, right? We talked about the presentation. We talked about the different types of metal, how they're going to work with it. And we talk about the point of what the frittata is, right? It's a nice egg dish that's baked. In Italy, they don't serve this at breakfast. It's more of a lunch or a dinner, right? You might have it like that. So in our case, it's perfect for a brunch, right? It's kind of full, has a lot of things happening in this particular one. It's kind of fun. So we'll just let that kind of cook up. You can see it's starting to bubble on the sides. It's starting to come up on the sides is what I want. A little oil on top. Bake this guy in the oven here. So while we're letting this guy go, we'll be right back, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks. Okay, so you see how we're getting a nice little crust going over here? It's just about ready to go in the oven. So just want to make sure you have no real big raw spots. All right, so we got this going here. Ready to put this guy in the oven and bake him for about 25 minutes or so. Remember, this is already hot. Put this guy in the oven now. And we're good to go. So listen, I got a great recipe for these pancakes. They're called heavenly pancakes. And when I tell you they're heavenly, they're unbelievable. One of the hotels I worked at in Orlando, Florida has these on their menu, and I had to get it. So it's a little different than you typically would get. Fresh made pancakes from scratch, no mixes. It includes sour cream, eggs, a little baking powder, some sugar, a little pinch of salt, and some cake flour. If you remember earlier, I talked about cake flour. Cake flour is lighter than all-purpose flour or bread flour. And it's really important to have this flour in this particular case because the sour cream is heavy. So instead of using buttermilk or regular milk, we're using sour cream. We're going to do a lesson one day on cooking with sour cream because there's so many great things. I got a great recipe for a sour cream mac and cheese. So it works out really good. Okay, so let's get started real quick. So this particular batter works with a couple of different things. We're going to take all our dry ingredients, our flour, right? Cake flour, as we talked about, our sugar, baking powder, right? Some salt here. We don't need any pepper in that one. So I said baking powder, it's actually baking soda, excuse me. So I just want to clarify that. All right, so we have our dry ingredients here. We're going to mix those together really quickly, just enough to incorporate. And then we're going to take our 4 eggs, a cup of sour cream, okay? And we're going to just slightly mix this guy together. And then we'll just incorporate the wet ingredients inside the dry ingredients. We'll let this rest for like 5 minutes so flour can relax. It doesn't work a lot because remember I'm using cake flour, so the protein content is different. Okay, so here's your wet ingredients. Now, if you want to get a head start the day before, you can mix your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients, leave them on a counter. Your dry ingredients, that is, and then your wet ingredients, you can just mix it and put it in the refrigerator. This batter doesn't hold up more than 24 hours. So if you make this batter, you got to use it within a 24-hour period. And I say that because the sour cream weighs down on the flour. Okay, so put this guy over here, get them out of the way. Now I get a nice whisk here, and then we're going to mix this guy inside the dry ingredients. So it's important to do this step here separately so the eggs get incorporated and don't get absorbed into the flour before they're incorporated. So now this is nice and incorporated. You can leave lumps in this particular batter. That's okay. It's a batter. It's going to cook it down and it's going to break it off. Okay. So it's always a treat to do this. I have chefs that I work with that I've given this to who call me all the time. Can I get that recipe? All the time. People that don't work with me anymore, they still want to use it, which is great. All right, so we have our two ingredients here, our dries and our wets, mixed together, okay? Notice I'm folding this gently. I'm coming from the sides, so the batter doesn't get weighed down, so it stays nice and light, okay? All right. So it's okay if it's a little bit of lumpy. That's okay. Okay. So this is just about ready to go. Nice fresh pancake batter, sour cream pancakes. Heavenly pancakes. Okay. Now I don't want to work this too much, as I mentioned, although you really won't have too much, you won't have protein buildup from the flour, but you got a little lumps in there, see that? That's okay. That's good to go. I'm gonna taste them right now. Tastes great. We'll let that go. We're gonna rest for like 5 minutes, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes, and we'll start cooking them. So our pork is ready. I took it out a little while ago. We got it to rest a little bit. We'll talk about resting real quick. Resting is when the meat reabsorbs the juices, and it keeps it from getting tough, right? So a nice flavor in that way. So I let it rest a little bit. Like I said to you, you don't have to serve this warm. You can serve this room temperature. You can serve it cold. Okay, it's a great little, nice little alternative to a hot item. And you can also use lamb. You can use chicken if you like. Turkey, as I mentioned earlier, when I made the mistake of talking about turkey for Thanksgiving. But you can still use the same ideas. Okay, so we have the pork tenderloin here. And I'm going to slice these nice and thin. They're still nice and a little bit warm. See the juices coming through. I don't need to have this extremely hot, okay? So we have a nice Tunisian spiced pork tenderloin, okay? So got this cooked to medium well done, which is fine, okay? And the thing about the beauty about a pork tenderloin is that it stays nice and tender, hence the name tenderloin. So even if you cook it too much, it still works okay. All right, so we have a nice pieces here. We're going to just kind of fan these out, okay? A little bit warm still. You can see the smoke coming up. All right. Want these pieces go to waste. So now we have our nice olive tomato relish with capers, right? We have our nice sherry vinegar in here. So this is an alternative to bacon, right? So we're not doing bacon for today's menu. It's an alternative. So if you don't want to serve a typical brunch with bacon. So now we have our nice bean puree, right? Put these little dollops on here. And they're nice and creamy, and it kind of tones down the little spiciness that we have going on. And then for the final touch, we're going to put a little bit of olive oil. I like to call this love. Just a little bit of olive oil, a little love on top. Nice fruity, spicy olive oil. Okay. And there we go. Perfect. There's our pork. Tunisian pork. Okay, so our frittata is ready now, and it's looking beautiful. Look at that. Put them right on top. It's boiling, bubbling right there. Mmm. Let's take a look. So we got a little crush going here. It's nice and firm. Yes, there we go. Our cheese is cooked through. It smells fantastic. Now what I like about this one here is I'm going to put a little bit of these guys for garnish. A couple of little bit of yellows. And then you put this at the table. These warm up. So you don't have to do anything for that after that. So that's ready to go. It's real hot, so you want to be real careful when you pick it up. Okay, and if you have a trivet or a wood block, you put this on, you serve it just like that. So in our case, we're going to put it right on the cutting board. And that's it. That's our beautiful frittata. Welcome back. I am so excited to share this recipe with you. Sour cream pancakes, heavenly pancakes. They are unbelievable. So before we get actually into making it real quick, I want to talk about the pan, okay? A non-stick griddle, nice and heavy gauge. So one of the things, I happen to have a Le Creuset one here. I also have another one that's a little bit bigger for myself as well if I'm doing more. But the key to this one here is that you don't want to oil it, right? You don't want to put oil, you don't want to put spray, because then you have fried cakes. Okay, if you have a non-stick pan, you can use an omelet pan. That works too, if you don't have one of these griddles. An omelet pan that's non-stick. And then you put no oil in it, and it just kind of gets that nice golden color kind of throughout. So that's what we have here. Now, you may have to sacrifice your first one just because you want to make sure you get your temperature right. It takes time to kind of level it off. Depends if you have an electric oven, electric stove top, or a gas may make a difference in how it comes. This is a simple one because it just kind of takes one ring here, so it works out nice. Okay, so we got this batter, nice and thick, right? Look how nice and thick. And then when you actually, and hopefully you can see this on the TV, we're gonna start right here. As we start when we flip it over, okay, you'll see that it will start to rise. And two things happens. One is important, is because the cake flour is what allowing that to happen. If it was the heavier flour, it wouldn't make that happen. The second is the baking powder that would help make it rise, right? So we're gonna put 4 of these here. Okay, and you get the right amount on each one. So when you have a brunch like this, when we have multiple things, we have biscuits, we have jams, we have the pork, we have the frittata, we have the pancakes. When you have multiple things like this that you're going to eat, you want to have small portionings. You don't need to make big pancakes this size. Okay? Smaller so you can taste a little bit of everything. That's the whole beauty about having a brunch. You have a little bit of everything. And then, of course, at the end of this brunch, or when we're going to have brunch, what do you got to have? You got to have a mimosa or a Bellini or something like that. So we'll make a few of those as well and have that. And we'll toast for Mother's Day at the end. But in the meantime, we're cooking pancakes. Now, this recipe you don't need any occasion, any special occasion to make it. New Year's Day, Christmas Day, just any other Sunday, perfect. Once you do this, it'll be a treat. I think you'll really enjoy it. And then what you put on it is up to you, what you like to put on it. You can infuse blueberries with your maple syrup. You can infuse cinnamon in if you like. You can use plain maple syrup. But let me just say something. If you're going to go to the effort of making a beautiful sour cream pancakes, you need to have real maple syrup. Not the imitation stuff. Real grade A maple syrup, light amber color, beautiful flavor. Preferably something from our neck of the woods here, New Hampshire, Vermont, Canada, all great stuff. Really fantastic syrups that go a long way. But anyway, make sure you get the right quality stuff, okay? So, what's this guy ready? Look, I got a non-stick, I got a nice non-stick but plastic spatula so I don't scrape my pan here. So this guy's ready to go. Color's a little bit dark there. It's probably because the pan's not quite where it needs to be. Okay, that's beautiful right there. If you look closely, I don't know if you can get it, so you'll start to see them rise as you flip them over. Okay, and they smell great. We tested them. They're coming out really nice. Okay, so they're going to come up really nice. They're going to be nice and dense, but light in the same way. And you're going to eat them like a sponge. They're so good. Okay, so we'll let this go. It doesn't take long. Notice that there's no fry look to it. Notice there's no oil on it. And the other thing, the practical point of it is that if you're putting oil and spray on these pans, eventually it's going to build up. And then you're going to have to throw them away, or it's hard to clean. Then you scrub them. Before you know it, the non-stick coating comes off. So from a practical standpoint, using something that's non-stick like this, you could make it lower in fat. You can also make it a nicer texture when you cook it. So I'm going to feel these here. It's a little bit soft right here, because remember that denseness has to cook up a little bit. Okay, almost done. Doesn't take long, but they got a nice little rise to them. Okay, the other side is here. Just showing you what's going on here, but these look great. They're coming out just another minute or two, and they'll be ready to go. Nice and light. You know what's fun about this? If you get a little, we do this, my daughter Kayla and my wife, and when one of her friends, one of her great friends would sleep over, really close friends, we would do griddle in the middle. So we would get this little electric griddle, put it in the center of the table, make a pancake batter. And that one, I didn't really worry about, I didn't make this pancake batter, I made other ones, right? Simple ones. But they would all make them right on themselves, little ones, and have fun and put things on them, and they had a fun time making it. That's what's nice about those electric griddles, and then the ones that particularly have a non-stick to them, so you can do that. So that's cooking there. That one's going resting over there. We're going to make a couple more for here. So if you get the right spoon that has the right size, you can kind of measure it out, take one big scoop, okay? And then, but in this case, it's kind of on the big side, so I don't want them too big. But you want a good size. You can make them tiny, you can make Mickey Mouse ones, whatever you prefer. Okay, so we're going to let this go, let that cook a little bit. And we got plenty of batter. I'm not going to make the whole thing, but you get the idea of what we're going to do here, right? So we got a little powdered sugar, some great maple syrup, locally sourced. So for you guys that are going to make this dinner for your wife, and I hope a lot of you do, or your daughter, you want to have a nice day, do something to your wife and daughter, make the batter the day before, right? Make it simple for yourself. Make the batter the day before. You can even make the biscuit batter dough the day before, although they pretty much simply could do that in the morning so they come out warm. But you make the batter the day before. You can cook the pork the day before, as you mentioned, right? And you can serve it cold or just kind of bring it to room temperature and lightly heat it up in the oven. So those little steps are going to make this day pleasurable, enjoyable, not a mess, and everyone's going to have a good time. So do those little things like that will make it simpler for yourself. And I would definitely the frittata you're going to make the day of. And like I suggest is make the biscuits the day of. You can make the batter, the biscuit dough the day before, and just bake them that morning, okay? So they're nice and warm. All right, so these are not quite ready yet. You start to get a little bit of an edge here when it starts to curl up and gets a little holes. That's when you kind of know it's ready to turn over. So these are coming out good over here. And then we got a nice little stack of pancakes. And then we're going to just put this little stuff here. So remember, no oil, no grease, no spray. Non-stick, a kind of nice, heavy, thick. It's worth it to invest in a good griddle. I bought something recently at a restaurant supply store that was thinner, and it did not work well. It was burning everything. I took it back. I ordered this one. I ordered another one, a Calphalon one as well, and Le Creuset. I'm not endorsing any one of them. I'm just saying is that there's good options out there as long as they're thick gauged and they're nice and non-stick. All right, so this guy's ready to be flipped. That looks great. Good color on that one. You also want to make sure you have good color because then that little sugar that's in there caramelizes a little bit. So you want to make sure that you have it. So this is actually the perfect temperature. The first batch we had was a little bit hot. I took it down. These are perfect. So these are going good. We're really excited about these. I'm really excited about you guys are going to try these. You're going to make them. So let me tell you a little bit. I have an Instagram account, Chef Armetta. I'd love to get your feedback if you want to follow me on that stuff. I got a couple things. I just started doing it this recently, so it's content's building. So I'd love for you to join me on that. But there's a lot of good stuff that we're doing and seeing, some of the stuff we're playing with, and I'm excited about. Hope you guys can join me on that. So this is part of what we do in Revere, right? What's Cooking Revere? What are we doing around here? Celebrating a great Mother's Day, the people that love in your life. I know I'm going to be making a nice, great Mother's Day dinner for my wife, Lisa, and my mother-in-law, Viviana. And of course, my daughter will help me with that, Kayla. So we'll really enjoy this ourselves. So these are just about ready. See, they rose up a little bit, right? I can feel it's firmer. It's actually the perfect temperature. So this is great. We'll move this guy over. All right. What I typically like to do is let people put their own stuff on them, on the pancake, but I always like to dress it a little bit, right? So I got this great syrup, just enough to kind of make it look nice. You put the syrup on the side, a little bit of powdered sugar, okay? Just on one side. Don't even do it over here. Just a nice restaurant look to it, nice like a Photoshop look, right? That's what that is. So you have this beautiful sour cream pancakes. And that's it. Great. So we're going to make one more dish. We're going to make some strawberries and cream, and then we're ready to eat. All right, guys, we're almost there. It's the last thing, the last piece of the puzzle today for our beautiful Mother's Day brunch. We're gonna take some simple strawberries and cream, right? You can't get simple than that. So what we're gonna do really quickly is just get these strawberries ready, right? Kind of cut them up a little bit. Like I said to you earlier, just take these strawberries and save any of these pieces that you wanna kind of make a vinegar out of them, okay? And we're just gonna cut these guys, washed them earlier, which is fine. We'll separate them. I like the little green on top. I think they're kind of fun because they kind of lend themselves into the look. Plus then it becomes a dip, right? So leave the little green on top. So on this one here, we're just gonna leave this guys in the center, right? Push them out the center, leave them out of the center. This is here. So we got some whipping cream, some powdered sugar, and the powdered sugar is important because it has a little bit of natural cornstarch in it, so it holds up a little bit better when you whip it. And it's a little more stable than using granulated sugar. Granulated sugar will work too, but eventually will dissolve and then turns to liquid. And then when that happens, it just starts to destabilize the cream and break down. So the powdered sugar holds up when you're making it to whipped cream, holds up longer, okay? So nice cold cream, a mixing bowl here. I don't need a lot. So what I got, about maybe 4 ounces of cream in here. I got the powdered sugar. You could put a little vanilla if you want. You could put a little cocoa powder and make a little bit of chocolate cream with it. Really simple. Okay, you just go around like this by hand. And then enough to make it soft, a soft peak as we call it, right? Also known as the Chantilly Cream, which is nice and soft. You don't want a big whipped cream. You can't really over whip it by hand so much. Eventually you'll do that, but notice it's getting thick already. But if you do this in a mixing bowl, you can eventually turn this into butter, which we don't want to do. So this doesn't take long. It's already holding its shape. It's almost there, okay? Builds up good muscles in your arms. See, it's holding up now. It's almost there. I don't have it overly sweet, okay? So I'm just gonna test this real quick. Doesn't need any more. I didn't put too much. Okay. So put this cream in the middle. Everybody can kind of dig into it. You can use your strawberries, the green top of the strawberries as a handle. And there we go, simple. Now we're ready to make a mimosa and get started and enjoy Mother's Day brunch. Welcome back. And it's been my pleasure to really do this for you today. I like to thank Revere TV for allowing me to be here with What's Cooking Revere. Really excited about what we had here today. I know what I'm making for Mother's Day. I hope you dads and you kids are making this great meal for your mothers, those people that are special to you. And again, you can make this at any time. I know I'm gonna be enjoying it with my wife Lisa, my daughter Kayla, my in-laws as well. We're gonna have a great day. And first thing I wanna say thank you so much. Salute, many great meals ahead, and I hope to see you real soon. And I'd like to talk about what we have here in closing. So we're gonna start off with our Tunisian style pork tenderloin with a olive relish on top. And then we have our cacio e pepe frittata, kind of unique, different, really exciting. And then we head over to here some homemade fresh biscuits with scallion, black pepper, and cheddar cheese. And let's not forget the 2 little jams we have here, a compote of strawberry rhubarb and some blueberry with cinnamon. And then of course my favorite, the sour cream pancakes with great maple syrup. And you can't have a Mother's Day brunch without something sweet. A little bit of strawberries and cream always go a long way. And of course, Prosecco and orange juice. So salute, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.